ACC edition. I'm Joe Lisi, joined by former National Coach of the Year, Terry Bowden. Coach, week number 4 in the ACC is on the horizon. Great slate of action. We'll take a look at the updated odds entering the weekend. It's the Miami Hurricanes as the team to beat. Miami knocked off USF last week as a 17.5-point home favorite. They are now plus 155 in the current updated odds. Clemson plus 650 after their road loss to Georgia Tech. Just give me your thoughts about where the Hurricanes stand, not just in the ACC, but big picture against the other Power 4 conferences.
Well, I think from an ACC standpoint, they're separating themselves. They've jumped to number 1, and the odds are moving in their favor to win the ACC. And I think the way they played and the way other top teams in the conferences have played, especially Clemson, that's what we thought we saw with that. As far as the national picture, I think Miami is now in it. When I say in it, you're talking about the top 4 or 5 teams in the country. The odds are that they will play for that national championship. I think they can say they are definitely in that picture now, whereas opposed to ACC, they're favored. National championship game, they're in the hunt right now, and it's perceived by a lot of people.
And when you see Miami, just from the coaching perspective, Mario Cristobal now steps up week 1 against Notre Dame, a top 5 opponent. They get that home win. They face a red-hot USF team. They win that game by 37 total points. This week they face an in-state rival in Florida and still have Florida State on deck. What can Mario Cristobal do week to week to keep this team motivated? Because you and I had spoken, it's very difficult to get up each and every Saturday for 18 to 22-year-olds. So what can Mario Cristobal and this staff do to maintain the focus of making the college football playoff?
Well, just keep winning. Keep seeing what your opportunities are. I think they're hungry. They have fallen short. They fell short last year. The team is a different team. I think guys on the defense, guys on the offensive line, running backs, wide receivers, not just the quarterback, they all see that they're part of a much better football team. Last year, it was like, okay, what's Cam Ward going to do to win it for us? What's the defense going to do to put us in a bind? This year, everybody is pulling their part. And I think what the head coach has to do is just keep them all bought in, make sure you don't lose a game that you're supposed to win, and continue to do what you've been doing.
And when you see their schedule, I mentioned they have Florida on deck. They're 7.5-point home favorites. They then have back-to-back games, even though there's a bye week in there against Florida State and Louisville. Louisville pushed Miami to the limit last year at home. They now have to go on the road to South Beach. So for those other teams outside of Miami, teams like Georgia Tech, teams like Florida State and Louisville, there is an opportunity to catch the Hurricanes as they go through this gauntlet of an ACC schedule.
Absolutely. I mean, most of those all play each other, so they're going to have a head-to-head competition. And if you look at the odds, people aren't blocking out Clemson just yet. We have not seen what we want to see, but they're still, odds-wise, they're clearly in the top 4 ahead of that 5th team in that odds. But I think what you've got to do is look at your season, make sure you go out there and win your head-to-head games, because it'll take care of itself as these teams play each other. Remember, the teams that didn't play were the Clemson and the Miami games. We said, well, that's probably 2 teams that don't play. Well, Clemson's not really in that picture now as the favorite team, and all these other teams will play each other to determine who's going to be in the ACC championship game.
You mentioned Clemson. They go on the road last week. They lose a very difficult game to Haynes King and Georgia Tech, lose it on a last-second field goal. They lost that game in the first half, basically trailed 13-0 to the Yellow Jackets, tied it up in the fourth quarter, but then Haynes King leads the game-winning drive. For Georgia Tech right now, you have a marquee top 25 win under your belt. They have the week 1 win over out-of-conference opponent Colorado. What can Brent Key and this team do moving forward to potentially not just win an ACC championship, but be a potential at-large team to make the college football playoff?
Well, again, it's just like we just said. Just keep doing what you're doing. They have got such a solid football team where everybody does their part, and then they've got a very special quarterback, a quarterback that's not afraid to put it all on his shoulders. Tough times, give me the ball. Let me carry it. Let me carry the load. They've got a special quarterback in Haynes King. And when you've got a quarterback that's a leader, that has poise, that type of quarterback that Haynes King is, when you have the confidence and the toughness and the system, and they have a great system offensively that controls the clock, that keeps them on the field, that finds a way to make first downs with their legs and with throwing, they're going to be in every football game. So the key is they are just got to keep doing because they have great confidence, they've got great work ethic, and their head coach has them playing physically tough, and tough football teams go a long way.
They snapped a 9-game losing streak to the Clemson Tigers. They stepped up, get the 3-point win. And to your point about Haynes King, one of the most athletic quarterbacks in all of FBS. He does have 2 100-yard rushing performances against Colorado, and last week against the Clemson front seven allowed Georgia Tech to pull that ball game out in the fourth quarter. When you look at some of the other teams like Florida State, we saw them start fast. They had 2 out-of-conference games. They've been maintaining that momentum. What's the biggest thing for Mike Norvell as they have a game in a couple of weeks with the Miami Hurricanes?
Well, they've got to understand that people, because their new offensive coordinator and their quarterback together are creating a lot of problems for the teams they played. It's a special system that a dual-threat quarterback can make you look awful good. But as we saw, Gus Malzahn as the head coach at UCF last year, they lost 8 out of their last 9 games. They've got to make sure they keep sharp. They play great defense because the other teams in the conference, they're going to get a better feel for this offensive system. They're going to play it better. And Florida State's going to be in for some tough ball games. They've got to win the close ones and not just do it with the quarterback like Cam Ward last year at Miami. They've got to continue to play great defense. And we've seen that confidence kind of spread throughout their football team.
Absolutely. In Florida State, the biggest thing is they're playing with momentum. They're playing with confidence. Offense and defensive lines have been very good on both sides of the football. They're starting to run the football more consistently than what they were. Let's not forget, last year the Seminoles had one of the worst rushing attacks in all of FBS. They've changed that in just 12 months. A main reason why Florida State is undefeated entering week number 4. We're going to get into this game a little bit later, but Bill Belichick has righted the ship. They lose week number 1 to TCU. They've put together back-to-back wins, Coach. They're 2-1. What is the mindset you feel of North Carolina? Has Bill Belichick really, I want to say, just squashed all the haters right now, and the team now can potentially concentrate on winning some games at a conference and in the conference within the ACC?
I think the North Carolina fans were so devastated after that TCU loss that they were quick to jump back on. They wanted to see something good happen. Now, they're better, but I really don't know how much better the North Carolina football team is or how much worse the opponents are, because they've beaten a couple, Charlotte and Richmond, 2 teams that are not in their league. And so, yes, they are getting better, but I'm not sold yet on how much better until they play teams like UCF will be a step up. UCF, a team that really hasn't beaten anybody either on their schedule, but it's a team that's definitely a step up than the last 2 teams that North Carolina has played.
We'll see. Right now, North Carolina on the road in the bounce house to face off against their former new head coach, Scott Frost. We'll see how that game plays out and break it down a little bit later in the show. When Coach and I return, we'll talk about the 2 biggest games within the ACC this Saturday, Syracuse and Clemson, and the big one in South Beach, Miami. Can they stay undefeated against a Florida Gator team that lost last week to LSU, 7.5-point favorite entering this matchup? We'll break it down next right here on the Bowden Blitz. All right, back on the Bowden Blitz. Coach Bowden and I are breaking down the Week 4 slate. We'll turn our attention to the battle in Death Valley, Clemson and Syracuse. Clemson opened up as a 17.5-point home favorite. We talked about the dominance in recent years for the Clemson Tigers. I've only lost 6 home games dating back to 2015. They've won 6 straight over Syracuse, coach, in the series. Last 4 games have been decided by a total of 13 points per game. They didn't play last year, but played back in 2023 with Clemson winning that matchup on the road 31-14. Steve Angeli and that offense can chuck it. He leads all of FBS with 1,083 passing yards. Can Clemson respond with a win, but more importantly, a potential cover against the Orange on Saturday?
Yeah, I'm not going to buy the cover now. 17.5. I've got Syracuse, but I think Clemson can respond. They have to respond. A loss here, or really an ugly game, would really suggest a slide in this football program, because right now you've already got Dabo Swinney kind of on the he's backed up against the wall. He's having to defend himself with his fans, and hey, if fire me if you want to, I'll go coach somewhere else, kind of stuff. Well, the point is, they just need to play better. Cade Klubnik has to break out and play like he can play. They've got to run the ball better when you need to run, and they've got to get the other team off the field. They haven't been able to get Georgia Tech or other teams off the field. Those are the things they've got to do. They've got to play better football. And if you're going to talk to your fans before the season or during the season that this is a championship caliber team, then it's time to go show it. And right now against Syracuse, now this is not only a team that leads the nation in passing, their quarterback's number 1, but their quarterback last year was number 1. Fran Brown knows what he's doing, and they're a team that can put points on the board.
Absolutely. And a couple of things when we break this game down. To your point about the Clemson rushing attack, they're only averaging 3.7 yards per carry. Right. But more importantly, Coach, only 108 rushing yards per game. Why is that important heading into this matchup? You just look at the body of work out of Clemson last year. They averaged 173 rushing yards per game. Last year, Cade Klubnik had a fantastic season. He completed over 60% of his passes, 36 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. He's only completing 59% of his passes this year, only 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. He needs the rushing attack to at least stay in manageable third down situations. The other factor, Coach, going up against Angeli, how affected or how important is this secondary? Because they're giving up 69% to opposing quarterbacks in completion percentage. They need a much better effort to not just win, but cover this large number on Saturday.
They sure do, but the defensive secondary cannot do it alone. They have a very, very talented defensive front. They have got to shut down the run, so Syracuse is passing in long yardage situations, and they've got to put pressure on that quarterback. I really think the defensive front, which was supposed to be the strength of the football team, is who's got to come through and put the secondary in a better situation. It's, when you don't know if they're going to run or pass, that's problem is on the secondary. But when the defensive front shuts down the running game, puts pressure on the quarterback, now the defensive back can sit back and cover good, make the big play. And that's what they need to do on defense.
Absolutely. We'll see how that game plays out. I actually think, Coach, in this type of situation, knowing that they're a home again, they've had lackluster efforts against LSU where they lost as a 4.5-point home favorite, lost the game outright, and then did not cover the following week against Troy. In fact, they trailed 17-0 in the first half of that matchup, won, but didn't cover the 31.5-point number. I got to believe that Clemson gives it its best effort. Could be a high-scoring affair. I like over the total, but I would lay it with the Clemson Tigers in this matchup.
Yeah, you and I have talked about that. I think Clemson's going to come back and they're going to win, but they haven't scored over 3 touchdowns in a game so far this year. I have yet to see that they have that type of offense, that they are doing the things that they used to do. I was back at Clemson as an analyst in 2019. And it was kind of like, how many points do we want to score this game? It was every time I was there. We would go there and it was like, let's go for 50. Let's go for 55. Of course, you had Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne. but there was a confidence there of how much we were going to score. As I watched Clemson this year, I'm thinking 3 touchdowns per game. They've got to improve on that offensive situation. So, yes, I think they'll come and respond, and then that will allow them a chance to get better every game. But I like that 17.5 on Syracuse.
Ooh, I like the underdog in our next game. We'll look at the Miami Hurricanes. I mentioned they're a 7.5-point home favorite over Florida. Back-to-back road games for Billy Napier and the Florida Gators. They did not cover, losing by 10 points to LSU in a rivalry game. That spread ended at 6.5, across multiple books. When you look at the Gators right now, Coach, I mean, they need a better effort out of DJ Lagway. He threw 5 interceptions last week. But in a rivalry game with over a touchdown, I understand Miami's playing well, but I'm going to take the 7.5 points with the Gators on the road.
Well, if you are, you've got to have confidence that was just an unusual situation last week with Lagway, the 5 interceptions. He's been much better than that, and he will have to be much better because the only real question with Florida, because they've got good football team. They've got talent, and that talent has showed up as far as not letting the other team score. But DJ Lagway, 5 interceptions. I saw 3 that he threw into coverage, and he threw balls that should not have been thrown if your head is in the game. So for whatever reason, now he faced some off-season injuries. He missed a lot of practice, but mentally those were things you cannot do if you're going to help your team win football games. So I think everything falls on the shoulders of DJ Lagway, not necessarily to throw for 1,000,000 yards, but not to make mistakes, to move the football comfortably and keep them in the football game. If you're going to get the kind of outcome that you think, it's going to come down to DJ playing his football game and not like last week.
DJ got his feet wet last year in the blowout loss to Cam Ward and the Miami Hurricanes. Yeah. Florida lost that game 41-17. Miami was in complete control from start to finish. We'll see how this game plays out on Saturday night. We'll come back with the other important games in the ACC. Joe Lisi and Coach Bowden coming right back. All right, back on the Bowden Blitz. Joe Lisi and Coach Bowden breaking down week 4 in the ACC. Left off talking about the battle in South Beach, Florida and Miami. There's a battle brewing in the bounce house in Orlando. UCF opens, Coach, as a 6.5-point home favorite over North Carolina. North Carolina and Bill Belichick have racked up back-to-back wins. They now go on the road. They're catching 6.5 in this matchup. I think Gio Lopez and the Tar Heels potentially, Coach, could get their 3rd win in a big way, outright potentially over UCF.
Well, you're reading my mind there because I've got that happening too. I don't know how good North Carolina's become because they've won 2 games since that loss I can't get out of my mind about TCU, but they're getting better. Now, their competition was getting worse. They play Richmond, and the teams that they played are not Charlotte and Richmond, not that good. But really, UCF hasn't played anybody. Jacksonville State they played, I think it played and won that game, and another game that they played against a team that wasn't very good. And Scott Frost is facing kind of the same situation. He's got about 60 or 70 new players. He's taken over in his first year of rebuilding a program with a new staff, new teams. And I just kind of think that Bill Belichick will do a better job of building his team faster than Scott Frost at UCF.
I agree, and they beat up on Jacksonville State week 1, 17-10, and then I believe they played North Carolina A&T, and they boat raced them 68-7. So if you were just looking at the body of work, I do like the fact that North Carolina has already played 3 games as opposed to 2. The heat in Orlando could always be a factor, but North Carolina should be prepared. It's humid there as well, even though they're going on the road. I think the biggest thing for me, too, is They gave up well over 7 yards per carry. North Carolina did in their week 1 performance against Sonny Dykes and TCU. They've only given up basically 9 points total in back-to-back games. And granted, it's Richmond and Charlotte, but still, those are pretty good defensive efforts. I have to believe that all of a sudden, Bill Belichick and Steve Belichick, the defensive coordinator, are starting to understand how this talent starts to respond in game situations, and we might get another stellar defensive effort on the road.
And I think the motivation of the coaches at North Carolina, because none of us really could figure out why he was going to North Carolina at his age and with his success. Was he just trying to give his sons a chance to go on and coach? But you know something? To go there and to fail, I think that sits with you. And after that first game, you got coaches with so much pride, with so much ability. They've set themselves in the course correct, and they know what they've got to do to be successful. And I think you're going to see a North Carolina team that gets better and better and better. So maybe it won't be the quick flip around of a program like everybody at Chapel Hill was thinking, but I think they're moving in the right direction. And he just might have that program in the next year or two in contention for the ACC.
Absolutely. Keep an eye out for former Indiana transfer for UCF, Taven Jackson. He stepped up. He's playing very well in Scott Frost's scheme. We'll see if he can attack that North Carolina defense over the top. We'll also see if the heat is an issue in the second half of that ball game. Coach and I both like North Carolina against UCF. Another battle takes place in Durham. It's Duke opens up right now as a 3.5-point home favorite over undefeated NC State. NC State and Dave Doran playing very disciplined, very well. They got a road victory a week ago over Wake Forest. This is not going to be an easy matchup. I just think Coach Duke has played much better competition. I like Darian Mensah. I think they cover this line on Saturday afternoon, even though they're 0-3 against the number.
I'm going with the dog on this one. I coached against Dave Doran. I coached against Dave Doran at Northern Illinois, and he's got a very physical-minded coach. He's got a football team that they haven't played terrible team, not great teams, but they had a good schedule, and they've won, and they play good physical football, and I like the way they play. And I don't think Duke, I just don't think the defense is as strong as they were last year. They've given up too many points. I don't think they're quite as strong. And these stadiums are only 22 miles apart. These guys are backyard. We talked about the West Virginia backyard brawl. Well, this is a across the street brawl here now because these stadiums are close. These fans, they live close to each other. And I could just see I got NC State because of their physicality and the way they have played. I've got them upsetting Duke at Duke Stadium.
We'll see. A couple of years ago, NC State was catching about 4 points. Backup quarterback stepped in for Duke. They won and covered that matchup. That was a rain-soaked game. We'll see if NC State could step up and get the road win. They're averaging 31 points per game and giving up 24 to opposing offenses. For Coach Bowden, I'm Joe Lisi. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you next week in the ACC right here on the Bowden Blitz.